You staring at me? Alright. Now I'm letting off. Is the red light going out?
No, it's still on. I think you might have to press...
Not off yet.
No. Is it now?
No, it's still on.
You're still on? Huh?
Viva Mayday! Woo! Viva Vida!
Come on, some action!
Excuse me.
Workers of the world unite!
One struggle, one fight!
Workers of the world unite!
One struggle, one fight!
Workers of the world unite! Workers of the world unite!
One struggle, one fight!
Workers of the world unite!
One struggle, one fight!
Workers of the world unite!
One struggle, one fight!
Workers of the world unite!
One struggle, one fight!
Workers of the world unite!
Defeat defeated! The people united will never be defeated! The people united will never be defeated! The people united will never be defeated! The people united! The people united! We're angry! We're loud! We're union! We're angry! We're loud!
Here we are.
Tape rolling there.
Was a brainchild of Comrade Craig Johnson, the State Secretary of the AMWU, and a number of the unions had a meeting and we said, all right, we'll give it a go. So it's for our first one, which hopefully will be one of many, it isn't too bad. Look, the proceedings are, there's Bob Mancourt, he's going to start off and sing a few songs. Bob, as you know, is an old chart topper from way back. And then after that, we've got some speakers. But before I get on the speakers, on behalf of the organising committee, which is made up of the CFMEU, the AMWU, the Federated Furniture Trades, the Plumbers, the ETU, Tim Gooden and his people from Resistance, I think, Trades Hall, I want to welcome you to this rally, and there's a few others I've probably forgotten. You'll jam me after the show and say you forgot about me. But the speakers are, as Johnny Cummins from the CFMEU, John's the president, who's spoken at Geelong on numerous rallies we've had. Linda Waldron from the N1 Collective Melbourne, which is the First of May Collective. Michelle O'Neill from the State Secretary of the Textile Clothing and Footwear Union. I haven't seen Michelle yet, but apparently she's on her way. Marcus Pavian from the Palestinian Solidarity Network. Craig Johnson, the State Secretary of the AMWU, and Craig, of course, used to be an organiser down here in Geelong. And Nigel White, is there Nigel White here? Ah, there he is, yeah, Nigel White from Bias. And
I really haven't got a lot to say here other than to really pat us on the back for having the initiative to do this. In 120 years, there is quite a bit of water under the bridge, but really when you think about it, things haven't changed that much. The battle's still the same. I mean, construction workers, on the last industry campaign, we had a bit of a shot at a shorter hours campaign, and shorter hours, they'd shoot you down 120 years ago, getting caught up in shorter hours and looking to flow those sort of things. In 2000, 2001, 2002, they saw a Royal Commission on you. And whilst it's a bit better than getting shot in the belly, sometimes you get the impression that given half a chance, some of them would like to do that to us as well. We've got a Royal Commission on us 6 months down the track, it's no news to too many of you all. It's a Royal Commission that has a purpose. It's a bit of a witch hunt, and they're going to try and do a hatchet job on the building unions and use that as a leg in to have a crack at all unions and also have a go at the wages and conditions of construction workers. I mean, there's no... that ain't a wise old owl like me telling you that. 6 months of seeing the Royal Commission in action tells us that. It came in on the eve of the last be the trigger for the Howard government to bring in legislation that's all about sort of trying to knock us off. And that has some fairly grave implications for all of us, but all of us have got to be over the mock shock. We think that if we stick together, we keep battling on. This is the third Royal Commission I've seen the building industry since I've been around. If we keep battling on and keep sticking together and keep doing it and keep backing up and keep backing each other up, then I think that the wages and conditions we've enjoyed, not out of the goodness of their heart, but because we've had to battle for them and battle for them to get and battle for them to keep, that's what we'll keep doing. So that's in the, I reckon, in the fine spirit of May Day. When you think about May Day, it's people all over the world marching in things like this. And May Day's come to Geelong, and I congratulate you for it. But it's happening all over the world. And when you really do think about it, you'd rather be us than them, because whilst they might have used to shoot us 120 years ago, these days they got a little more sophisticated, but the game's still the same. The game is all about denying us the wages and conditions we've got the cheek to aim up and battle for and win. And more power to you. Anybody invents a better way, let us know. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, John. As before I introduce the next speaker, which is Linda Waldron, is that anyone who doubts what John Cummins says, that they used to shoot unionists, the next time you're down at Warrnambool at the graveyard, if you go past Tower Hill, at the foot of Tower Hill there's a grave there of a shearer that was shot during the shearer strikes. He come from Koroit, he died in his mother's arms, and the union buried him there, and there's a monument there from the union. Now, after these speakers...
Thanks everyone. I come here from a very fabulous and successful May Day rally in Melbourne just a couple of hours ago. It's our second on the real May Day, May the 1st, for many years. Thanks. And it's very inspiring that we've now got two May Day rallies in Geelong and Melbourne on the one day, and a reflection of the upturn in political struggle when we can actually look that May Day actually is reclaimed as a workers' day, a day of international solidarity, that people are struggling with will and with courage everywhere, every year on May Day. Our strength is that we represent an alliance of forces and issues while remaining true to the spirit of May Days, which May Day of over a century now, the spirit of solidarity, workers' solidarity, international solidarity. This idea that only working class people have, that we all make a difference, and united together we can make a massive difference. We can change the world. And our growing unity is as important now as it has ever been. There are many in this society who are under attack, whether they're workers in the construction industry, like many of you here, whose unions could be destroyed by the viciousness of the Coal Royal Commission, or whether they are Indigenous Minister John Howard can't even bring himself to say sorry to. Whether they're environmental campaigners fighting for environmental justice rather than being able to create more grubby profits, more grubby super profits for big business. Perhaps it's a Palestinian standing there witnessing the US-supported Israeli genocide of your own people on the West Bank. Palestinians who are the largest group of refugees in the world, almost 4 million. And of course the group of people who are coming under fire most in Australia today are the refugees. Now there may be some of you here who don't support refugees. Perhaps you think, well, we're all doing it tough today, why should we be accepting any more refugees? The boat people are entering Australia illegally and consequently they shouldn't be allowed in. I'm not going to give a long speech about the humanitarian justification for standing with the refugees and looking after them. Because while that is terribly important, that's actually not what the issue is. The issue is we stand with the refugees because we need to look after our own interests. The fact is, it is in our interest to stand against the government's attacks on refugees. We are all working class people, people under attack wherever we are in the world. By allowing John Howard and Philip Ruddock and frankly whole layers of the ALP leadership as well to inflict racist attacks on refugees, this weakens our combined ability to fight back. It allows the government to victimise people, to divide and conquer, forcing us to fight bitterly amongst ourselves, picking on the weak, instead of uniting all of our forces, fighting back against the rotten, corrupt politicians, the greedy bosses, and a system that's chewing people up and spitting them out at the other end. Remember the slogan, an injury to one is an injury to all. Because the reality is that once the refugees have been done over, that issue is dealt with, who's next? Who do we stand with? We've got far more in common with people coming from Iraq and Afghanistan and Pakistan than we do with Kerry Packer and John Howard and Kim Beazley and anyone else of that scumbag layer. They might look different, they might speak another language, they might have another religion, but they are the oppressed, the destitute people of the world. In Pakistan, once the Musharraf, the Prime Minister, the dictator actually came in, half of the public service were immediately laid off. Privatisation was massively enforced, causing a rise in a jump in the cost of living of over 400%. This is what these people are fleeing from. And when there is war and economic sanctions imposed by the First World bosses to protect their own profits, then it's making it even more desperate for them. They are trying to escape. So once the government actually manages to turn us against these people, then who next do they work on? They've got a clear view to attack the CFMEU, the AMWU, the ETU, because that was the original intention of the Coal Royal Commission. After the MUA dispute, the Howard government still wanted to undermine, to smash all of the unions. And they were hoping to use the Royal Commission as a way of attacking what they hoped would be seen as an unpopular union, the CFMEU, during last year's election, and that way get themselves re-elected. Instead, the Tampa boat came along. How fantastic. What a wonderful red herring for them. Now they could concentrate and demonise these so-called enemies of the state. They could depict poor and desperate people trying to escape from war and poverty as villains and child abusers. And we all know just how much Howard and Reith lied to do that. And of course this was done during the election, so no one talked about the GST or what a mess the health system was in or how run-down public education has become. No, instead we all had to have a chat about how horrible and nasty and illegal were refugees. And that's how politicians destroy solidarity. That's why we have to stand shoulder to shoulder, and that's why I'm here today. I'm here from the M1 Collective in Melbourne in solidarity with the workers of Geelong and the people of Geelong. Your struggle is our struggle. And to echo the theme of M1, by standing together and fighting together, another world is possible. Dare to struggle, dare to win. If you don't fight, you lose.
Doesn't get much better than that. So you better just get used to it. Anyway, listen, the first song's a Billy Bragg song. Billy Bragg wrote this song about 20 years ago when Margaret Thatcher, who I think most of us would know, Margaret Thatcher is the hero and the great mentor of John Howard when she was going around smashing the working class in Britain and the organised working class, in particular the miners, and they didn't put up as good a struggle as they should have. And anybody who's been to Britain in recent years will tell you that things in Britain are pretty crook, and blokes that I know that have been working over there in the building industry, and I spent 3 years over there in Britain, cut me teeth over there in the industry. They reckon it's worse than it was 30 years ago. So it's a bit of a warning to all of us, and when we get complacent. See if you can sing along, it won't hurt you. There's power in the land, power in the hands of the workers, but it all pay for. From the farmlands and the factories to the trenches full of mud. War has always been the boss's way, sir. The Union forever defending our rights. Down with the black flags, all workers unite. With our brothers and our sisters from many far off lands. There is power in a union. Well, I long for the day that they realise that their unjust laws cannot defeat us. But who'll defend the workers who cannot organise? The bosses send their lackeys out to cheat us. Money speaks for money, the devil for his own. But who's gonna speak for the skin and the bone? What a comfort to the widow, a light to the child. There is power in a union. The union forever defending our rights. Down with the black flags, all workers unite. With our brothers and our sisters, together we will stand. There is power in a union. Those of us who knew him, he came from that generation of Australian working people that educated the likes of me, and for me, they were the greatest generation of people I ever got to know. They were well educated, not educated in the sense of having gone to Geelong Grammar and then off to Melbourne University. They were educated in the ways of the world. They had read books, they had talked to people, and they had listened, and they realised which way the world went round. Kieran's no longer with us, but his spirit certainly is, and what he taught many of us, and the way he handled himself and the way he held himself, it was an inspiration to all of us who knew him. So I'd like to dedicate this song to Kieran, and I'd like you to sing the chorus with us. It's about sticking together, you know, and at the moment a few people are getting a bit confused. We shall not be moved just like a tree that's standing by the waterside. We shall not be moved. The spirit of Kieran's with us. We shall not be moved. The spirit of Kieran's with us. We shall not be moved just like a tree that's standing by the waterside. We shall not be moved. Try to sing. Not be moved just like a tree that's standing by the waterside. We shall not be moved. We're marching on to victory. We shall not be moved. We're marching on to victory. We shall not be moved. Happy May Day. That was absolutely fantastic, Comrade Bob.
Geelong comrades, I don't know if there's much more that you can say that isn't contained in the words of those two songs that Bob just gave us, so I'll be brief. And I reckon it's always better to be able to sing something than say it anyway. May Day's about international solidarity. And an easy word to say, but solidarity is about justice, solidarity is about sticking together, solidarity is about standing up for fairness and a fair go for every person. I reckon that workers here in Geelong understand a lot about that. But it's something that workers around the world today, as we stop here today, are also stopping about. But sometimes we forget, you know, what it's like for some workers compared to others. And I know there's people here today who just to get to this rally, just to stop work on May Day, had to face being threatened with getting warnings and getting the sack and, you know, told that they shouldn't stop work and they better not take anyone with them. So all credit to those workers that showed the courage in the face of the bosses just trying to stop them even come here this afternoon, for actually standing up and coming out here, and a round of applause for those people, those workers that showed that courage. And of course, it's an example of courage, but you know, workers and unionists know about it, and it's happening around the world. And I want to say that the sort of thing that's happening here in Australia with the Royal Commission that John was speaking about earlier is about dividing people. And May Day is about uniting people. May Day is about what we can achieve when we stick together. And of course they want to use the Royal Commission. Of course they want to use, you know, the government's lies about unions and what we do and what we're on about as a way of trying to divide working people. Because they know if we turn against each other, if we're sus of each other, if we don't trust what unions are doing, if we don't trust the work that we're doing together, then of course we're weaker. And there is a lesson in it, because the same way that they try and demonise us as unionists and demonise workers who only want to get a fair go, the same way that, as John was describing, you know, what a thing to be guilty for winning a 36-hour week. Good on you. You know, what a thing to be guilty for people actually being prepared to stand on a picket line like our members at Godfrey Hirst did last year. What a thing to be guilty for the sort of things that people here in Geelong have stood up for over 100 years. Let's be guilty. You know, let's be guilty, and let's be proud of standing up and going against what is the orthodoxy of the government if they'd say this is bad. If they try and actually put in the sort of laws they're trying to put in now against things like pattern bargaining. Pattern bargaining is about collective strength. Of course they're going to try and make it illegal. And of course they're going to use the Royal Commission and some of our strongest brothers and sisters who've won things out of the struggle in the construction industry to try and undermine then everything for every other worker who's trying to struggle. So the only other thing I wanted to add to you is just imagine if the government put the same sort of resources that they're putting into the Royal Commission, into the laws that they're trying to pass against workers having a right to run an unfair dismissal if they get sacked in a small workplace. They'd put those sort of resources, effort, publicity into saving jobs in Geelong. Imagine if that was as important to them as trying to break our strong unions. Imagine what we could achieve if governments actually cared enough about the closure of places like Classweave, about candy workers losing their jobs in the last month. Imagine if they cared enough about that to put the effort and resources into putting a Royal Commission into manufacturing jobs. They don't care. And we've got to be really clear that the government is acting with the corporations' interests at heart. They're acting together, and that's what they're trying to do. And as much as they try and divide us as workers, it's the same message in terms of what they try to do in our workplaces. And if we don't recognise that the person with the different colour skin, the person who speaks a different language, the person who came to Australia from another country is as much our brother and sister as someone who looks like us and sounds like us, then we've got to learn that too. Because unless we can be united on those things, we're going to be vulnerable. Our strength is in recognising working people, sticking together, however we got to Australia, whatever language we speak, and whatever colour we are. That's our strength. We can actually win, we can beat them if we don't let them divide us. So comrades, good on you for having a May Day again in Geelong. I'm sure that it's not the first time, but it's been the first time in a while. A privilege to be here with you. All strength to you. Happy May Day.
Thank you very much, Michelle. As our next speaker is Marcus Pabian from the Palestinian Solidarity Network. And I want you to have a real good listen to what Fabian's got to say. Anyone who's seen the I personally have been affected by this. Is that anyone who'd seen the...
I'm here today on behalf of a friend of mine whose name is Ale. She can't come today because she had to go to court for one of her friends. We're all part of a Palestine Solidarity Network at La Trobe University, and I come to you here today as a student and also as a worker. As you know, most students these days are also working. My friends at La Trobe University are Arabic, and a few months ago they used to have friends in Palestine. Today, some of those friends are dead. The reason why those friends of theirs are dead today is because when the Israeli military thought it would extend its occupation over their land, an occupation which has been going since 1948, for 54 years, continually expanding over more and more of their land. That occupation began with 400 of the Palestinian villages being bulldozed and crushed to the ground, the women being raped, the children being murdered. This is how it began, and it's never ended for the last 54 years. The friends of theirs that died recently died because they dared to defend themselves. When the Israeli tanks came driving down the street, when the gunships, the helicopter gunships, came flying overhead, when the soldiers, the sniper soldiers, started murdering their friends, they had the courage to fight back with sticks and stones, and they were killed. They were killed for fighting back. Now the Palestine Solidarity Network has got a lot of work to do, because unfortunately cases like the Four Corners program are too rare in Australia. The truth about what's really happening to those people just isn't getting out. And that's what our network was set up to do. And that's what we've been doing at La Trobe University. And that's what we'll continue to do from here on in. We're calling for the Australian government to withdraw its support for that military regime in Israel. It's got to be one of the biggest acts of terrorism in the world, to occupy someone's land for 54 years, to drive out millions of the inhabitants of that land, to rape the women, and to murder people en masse. That must be the biggest act of terrorism in the world. Today, if you want to ask yourself the question, which is the biggest group of refugees in the world? The answer to that question is it's the Palestinians. There's over 4 million Palestinian refugees in the world today. That's how big the terrorism that they have faced is. And would you believe it? Who supports the Israeli government? Who's their biggest fan? Who's their biggest supporter? I'll give you one guess. Uncle Sam, thank you very much. Uncle Sam, the United States of America, for some reason doesn't have the money to give workers in America a safety net, or a decent healthcare system, or a decent education. But somehow, Uncle Sam has got $2,700 million every year to give to one of the biggest terrorists in the world, to occupy and to continue to occupy the land of the Palestinian people. We must break the silence, and we must stand in solidarity with all those people who are dispossessed and all those people who are downtrodden. That's why we're here on May Day. And I can tell you that all the Palestinians that I know on La Trobe University, they all came out for May Day because they want to support the cause of workers in Australia as well. Let's support the downtrodden. Let's support the Palestinians. Thanks for your time.
Can do in Geelong to assist the Palestinian refugees. Okay, well, look, our next speaker, before we march off, and after the speaker is Tim Gooden, will explain the route of the march and all the march.
People and perhaps young people often get forgotten in today's world. You can't hear. How do you
yell
say?
Out.
Just yell out.
Yell out.
Yeah, young people often get forgotten in today's world, and we don't send young people up to clean chimneys or work 14 hours a day in factories or down the mine, but I might tell you that I think young people are particularly doing it tough today, trying to find their way into the workforce and feel like they're contributing members of our society. As we know, the labour market has changed dramatically over the last 20 years, and the number of semi-skilled and unskilled jobs that are available has gone down, and this particularly affects young people as it's made it that much harder for them to get into the labour market and again become contributing members of our community. The few jobs that there are around are highly sought after, and it's very competitive. Apprenticeships are few and far between, and again, with the increased competition, this favours people who have a better education and perhaps have come from more financially advantaged backgrounds. So if you're a young person and your parents aren't rich and you haven't had great opportunities in life, you're going to find it hard to get into the labour market. And unfortunately, as I heard people say before, we scapegoat the refugees, and we also scapegoat young people because they don't have a voice to speak back, and they're easy targets. They're visible. They're in our faces. They do things that we don't like. They wear clothes that are a bit different. So I think if we want young people to feel part of our community, one of the first things we need to know is that they are our future workers and that we should reach out to them and not scapegoat them. Our workforce has also changed in that it's become more casualised and deregulated, and for young people this it presents huge challenges. On many occasions we've had young people coming to us who've been unfairly dismissed or harassed or placed on trial and been told, that in 2 weeks' time you'll get a job, only to be told that you're no longer required. Discrimination isn't often, up front. It can be very subtle, and young people face discrimination in lots of other ways. If they are lucky enough to get into university, they now start a working life with a HECS debt. And I was reading in the paper that there's a paper out now which is looking at extending a HECS-type system into the TAFE system. The TAFE system represented a pathway into higher education for young people, and that if that is taken away, it just places another barrier, and again the people that disadvantages most are those who don't come from privileged backgrounds. Accommodation is a huge issue for young people in Geelong. The accommodation is the area that I work in. We find young people being discriminated against in getting private rental, and again it's subtle. They're often told that the property is gone, only to come back 2 or 3 days later and find that the property is still for rent. The amount of money they're actually paying, sometimes up to 50% of their income, their total income is being paid just on rent. If young people happen to have a troubled background and not much support from their family, again, this makes all these things that much more difficult. Negotiating things like Centrelink, like dealing with the police, public transport. All these issues become that much harder if you have no family support. In terms of Centrelink, there's mutual obligation, and I often wonder where the obligation on the government's side is to provide young people with a sense of dignity. Young people have access to public space. Again, I think that our local paper has often been guilty of targeting young people just simply because they feel like they want to be a part of this city. How can we support young people? Well, there's some really practical ways. If we want to support young people, we must support their families, so things like paid maternity leave, parental leave and carers leave are really important and need to be enshrined in all our working arrangements. Rather than getting rid of unfair dismissal laws, I think we need to strengthen them, and so that we are actually protecting the most vulnerable people in our community. We must support dignified job creation, and I don't include work for the dole in dignified job creation. We need to give people a sense that they belong to our community and not that they are some kind of parasite. Education must become accessible to all, and regardless of your financial background, we must make the education system as transparent as possible. We, of course, need an increase in affordable accommodation, and that goes right across the board. Over the years, supported accommodation for young people with lots of issues has been gradually removed from our community, and I think that leaves young people with very little hope for the future. Lastly, I think if we want to include young people in our community, we need to all remember that we were young once, that we all rebelled and did things that got in the faces of adults, and it's okay. So when we see a young person out there, remember that it's a struggle, and remember that you were there and they're there now. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Nigel. Okay, well, I'll introduce Tim Gooden, who's going to give a rundown on the march. Move a resolution.
No, it's okay. Hello, Rory.
You want to do this? It's so scary for you.
One struggle, one fight. Workers of the world unite. One struggle, one fight. Workers of the world unite. One struggle, one fight. Workers of the world unite. One struggle, one fight. Workers of the world unite. One struggle. Workers of the world unite. What do we want? Now! 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 Where do we want? Now! They're civil blokes. Come on, Glenn. Come on, you blokes. Speak up. You've got to speak up. Oh, we'll give her another warm-up. What do we want? How's it? Now! How's it? Now! What do we want? How's it?
Roughest guts, bleeding dynamite. Zoom in, that's enough.
Solidarity together. Beautiful. Alright, beautiful.
What do you want to do?
Can I get a shot of that?
Yeah. Nothing against it? Yeah, you have to move along with the ball, though. Back that way.
I don't want to repeat too much of what's already been said, so I'll be very quick.
The idea about May Day and why our union support a number of other unions is because it's about time we started celebrating our victories, working class victories. Because in this country, we have a public holiday for some queen that ain't even a birthday. We have a public holiday for a horse race. We have a public holiday for some Christian god. But we don't have a public holiday for the people that make the money, keep this country running. That's us, the working class. And the demand today should be, we demand May Day as a public holiday. All around the world, workers today are marching for May Day, whether you be in India, France, Italy, the United States, and that's where May Day started over in America. Even in Queensland and Northern Territory they have a public holiday. But in Australia, in Victoria, in the year 2002, we got to go on strike to have a public holiday. It's bullshit, and we got a demand from the Brax Labor government, so-called Labor government, that they say May Day is declared a public holiday for working people in this state. So the demands that we're making, the problems we have in manufacturing, where we're having factories closing, where in construction we're under attack because of this Royal Commission, it's all the same. Currently at the moment there's 18 million people marched just recently in Italy because they want to repeal the unfair dismissal laws. In India some 10 million people were on strike last week because they want to change the unfair dismissal laws. And now in Australia, once again, they want to change the unfair dismissal laws. Why should you be allowed to sack someone unfairly? What sort of arsehole thinks that's a good idea? Only Tony Abbott, only John Howard, all those rats, as I said, that are on the huge amounts of money that don't give a continental. I wouldn't mind being sacked from Parliament if I was going to get 140 grand a year or 200 grand a year in, if you like, pensions. But if we get the arse, we're on the rock and roll, we get nothing. So we need to start, if you like, telling the politicians, you've got to start representing us. From the AMW's point of view, we're saying manufacturing workers demand a May Day. We demand protection for our jobs, we demand support, we demand working class people having a real go. And if you like, giving us some dignity and some support, and so that we're not having massive unemployment as we're seeing at the moment. Finally, I just want to raise that there's a resolution that's been drafted by Brother Crans, and I'd ask that maybe you just give us a quick thing, I'll read it out. Oh, thanks, Camo. Well, one other thing I wanted to mention, there is a number of unions here, and in particular some of the blokes here from Pilkingtons. They've never stopped before, that's the guys in the production area. They lost their 35-hour week, they've committed, they're going to go and fight next time to win it back. Why don't you give them a big hand? I know today in Melbourne there was something like 20,000 workers and they send their greetings and solidarity. Last year was much smaller. We obviously want to build it bigger and bigger every year, and we hope that this time next year we have double what we've got. Obviously this is not just about workers and workers' conditions, it's about some of the community issues, because we're all under attack, whether you're a refugee, whether you're a Palestinian, whether you're a student, whether you're a worker. The Rotten Herald Sun, the Geelong Addy, the Age, all the rest of those grubs, always demonising us, always attacking us. And what we're saying, it's us, class to class, face to face, until we fight those bastards till the end so we get a fair, decent side for working people. Of Geelong May Day 2000. This meeting fully supports that May Day is an international day of solidarity for workers that are continuing the fight for improved working and living conditions and world peace. We oppose the position the Howard government has taken on attacks on working people in third world countries and its inhumane treatment of refugees in this country. We oppose the Howard government's increased power to ASIO that will affect the role of unions and workers. We also oppose the Howard government-appointed Royal Commission led by a Howard government mate, Cole, in attacking building workers and their unions. This action is costing the Australian taxpayer $60 million. This government, instead of attacking workers, should be standing up for working people and their families. We call on the government to end this so-called Royal Commission and use its energies to create jobs for unemployed and improve living conditions for our aged and those in need. We demand that the state Brax government legislate for a public holiday to recognise May Day for the activities that now happen in the past and in the future. Someone better move that resolution. Yeah. Been moved. Someone to second it. Anyone want to speak for or against? If not, all those in favour? Aye. Those against, thank you very much. I'll hand you back to Johnny Krantz. Good on you.
Okay, look, I want to thank you for coming to the May Day I want to thank all those organisers that I mentioned right at the start. There's the Gary Robs. I want to thank all the speakers, but most of all, I want to thank all yous. You've absolutely convinced all of us that we've got to have one next year. It's got to be bigger. It's got to have everyone there. We've got to get Fords, Shell, all the other joints out on the streets with us. Okay, so look, once and all, thanks very much. See you again. Stick together. Go struggle! Yeah! If you don't fight, yeah!
Oh, Mayday. Yeah, it's symbolic. It's like, it's a way of saying why. Why is this, like, racism happening for, like, people who are coming to this country, and, like, basically the government saying, no, you can't come in, you're stuffed as it is, stay there and, like, live in these shit-house conditions. And no one in this goddamn country understands why they're doing it. And no one's saying no. Like, everyone just accepts it because they're fucking fed that. And this is a way of saying, this is a way of standing up and saying, no, this is not good enough. This is, it's just like, as this guy said, it's symbolic to, like, stand up against this oppression in our society at the moment. And it's happening. It's 2002 and this shit's still happening. And this is one way of saying no. Thanks. That's all right.
Well, it's the first time we've ever had one in Geelong. Oh, yeah. And I used to organise down here, so you know, it's a reasonable turn. It's probably a couple of thousand. We had a big one in Melbourne today. I was up there at the start. And obviously, it's a matter of just trying to get it bigger and bigger each year. I mean, we would hope to double it by next year. Yeah. I reckon today in Melbourne was double what there was last year. I don't know what the press said. We thought it was about 20,000, what we could see. Yeah. So it's just a matter of trying to build up, and then we can just pull off getting a public holiday. We get a public holiday, then we can hopefully really get the crowd up. So, you know. Yeah.